This project, too, Ethical Disasters, it was put together and presented by Ryan Francis, Paul All, Hunter McCormick, Nick Hale, and Zach Barton. The two engineering ethics disasters we chose were the Great Molasses Flood of 1919 and the FIU pedestrian bridge collapse, which occurred in 2018.
On a warmer winter afternoon on January 15, 1919, a large disaster happened that changed the way engineers go about their work ethically. On this day, a 2.5 million ton tank holding over 2 million gallons of molasses broke open and released molasses across the streets of Boston, Massachusetts. It resulted in a high-speed tsunami-like wave that traveled upwards of 35 miles per hour at some times. This spill covered the city's grounds and streets, sometimes up to a foot high. This sticky molasses took out nearby buildings and trapped people under the rubble and were unable to move. This tank was able to hold up to 2.5 million gallons of fluids. It had steel walls that ranged from different sizes or thicknesses, from 0.69 inches at the bottom of the tank to 0.31 inches at the top of the tank. There's speculations about fermentation that produced too much pressure inside the tank, and this was due to the quick change in temperatures over the past 2 days. The tank was never filled with water to test safety hazards, including cracks or odd sounds.
There were multiple impacts, both immediate and gradual. The flood resulted in the death of 21 people and injured over 150 more and caused about $100 million of structural damage. The scent of molasses could be smelled for decades all across Boston, and before long, every single U.S. state had instituted laws requiring engineers to have professional certification to prevent things like this from happening again. There were three NSPE Code of Ethics we believed that were violated. Primarily was Section 1.1, which is hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public. Obviously, that did not happen. They did not care for the health of the public. Sections 2.5, which is engineers shall avoid deceptive acts. They deceived both the public and the company into believing that the tanks were safe when obviously they were not. As previously mentioned, they didn't even test the tanks before filling them with molasses. And also Section 3.5, which is engineers shall not be influenced in their professional duties by conflicting interests. That was violated.
Our second case study was the FIU bridge collapse, which occurred on March 15, 2018. It was a pedestrian bridge connecting the Florida International University campus to the city of Sweetwater. The structural failure resulted in 6 fatalities. At the time of the collapse, workers were in the process of adjusting post-tensioning bars in the bridge to counter the effects of apparent cracking in the structure. We've also included a short video that was captured on a dash cam of a vehicle that day. At the time that the bridge collapsed, the adjustments were being made to the post-tensioning bars of a diagonal truss member by the engineer of record that were not in the original design and were not peer-reviewed beforehand. The design build contractor failed to communicate to the engineer of record that the cracks in the structure were in fact growing daily when the engineer of record had assumed they were not, which is what led him to make the decision to adjust the post-tensioning bars. Necessary safety precautions, including the closure of the street below the bridge, were obviously not taken upon inspection of the cracks the morning of the collapse.
Although the collapse resulted in the fatalities of 6 and the injury of 10, it did not affect FIU's tenacity. After 2 years of designing a new bridge, the state has announced they are preparing to take on the project again with extra caution this time around. Florida's Department of Transportation will be handling the team selection design process and also be directly supervising the construction, incorporating safety recommendation made by the NTSB, although they did not provide any specifics on what these safety recommendations were. The new bridge's design and construction will amount up to $14.6 million, which is about $2 million more than the previous bridge. And the FIU is also planning to utilize unused grants from the last bridge to pay off this new bridge. And they will also be eagerly want to get this new project underway to have it be a memorial for those who have passed away in the collapse. Now, for one of the NSPE Code of Ethics that was violated was Section 1.1, hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public. As mentioned in the unethical conduct section of the presentation, the ignorance of cracking the structure of the bridge and the failure to address the expansion of it proves that the safety of the public was not the main priority of the engineers responsible for the bridge. The other code that was violated was Section 3.1a. Engineers shall acknowledge their errors and shall not distort or alter the facts. Instead of the engineers completely acknowledging their failure to communicate safety issues and adjustments made to the bridge, they somewhat pushed the blame onto other parties involved and had to have outside engineers notify the public of the errors they made in the bridge. And that concludes our presentation, and thank you for listening.